Welcome to Disruptive Conversations. So happy to have you here today. We're waiting for people to come on. And we're going to be talking about mental wellness, difficulties with mental wellness. And it's going to be through our guest today, Dr. Candida Fink. Thanks everybody for coming on. If this is the first time you're here on Disruptive Conversations, hi, I'm Dr. Risa Reiger, clinical psychologist. I'm an expert in change. And today's conversation, not tonight, but today's conversation is going to be looking at the, impact of mental wellness, how we get mental wellness, how we address what is going on now. And here we go. And here's Dr. Candida Fink with us already. Seamless.
There
A
we
plus
go.
plus.
We did it.
This is her first Instagram live. It couldn't have gone better. And so now I'm going to introduce the show, introduce myself, introduce you. So welcome everyone to Disruptive Conversations with thought leaders, innovators, influencers, physicians, authors, and more, in which we deep dive into the experiences these women have needed to navigate and conquer in order to have achieved their personal and professional success up to this point in time, because there's more to come. And I'm Dr. Risa Reiger, clinical psychologist, and I'm an expert in change. I help people make positive change at any point in your life. It is never too late. But in order to have positive change, you need to disrupt. You need to disrupt a thought, a feeling, a belief, a habit, a behavior in order to create your 10.0 life. And that's what this series of conversations is all about. And today I am thrilled and I am very excited that Dr. Candida Fink is my guest, and I'm going to introduce her now. She's got quite a background, and to try to cull that and to condense it is my first morning challenge. So Dr. Candida Fink is a board-certified child and adolescent psychiatrist, and she's in private practice. She's a particular interest in the intersection between school and mental health, and for any of us who have kids, know kids, have been a kid, that we know the challenges that can come up for us while we're in school, because, as kids, school is our job. So in addition to that, Dr. Fink Candida, my dear colleague and friend, she also is an expert in bipolar illness. And if that is not enough, earlier on, she's a veteran of the military and served in the U.S. Army Medical Corps. So she's coming to us today with a wealth of extraordinary experience, information, and a serious kind of thinking about what happens. And of course, things always begin with us. Things always begin with who we are and what's going on with us. Okay. So, Candida, good morning.
Good morning, Risa. Thank you so much for having me. And like we were saying earlier, I love this series. I love what you're doing, the work you're doing, helping people make change. I mean, this is all fabulous. So thank you so much for having me.
And to continue in support of that, you're here today. So thank you for your time. So getting right to it. So Candida, what is it that you needed to disrupt in yourself in order to be able to have the personal and professional success you have at this point in time?
Ooh, let's see. I would say that the biggest theme for me is claiming my autonomy. I use the word autonomy a lot for myself personally, in my work with kids, families, adults, professionally. I think we can often get pretty lost in trying to meet expectations trying to do things that other people need. And of course, as caregivers, both professionally and personally, that, is true. I mean, we do have to meet other people's needs, but that maintaining my own sense of autonomy and that how I choose to live my life according to my values and what's important to me, um, and, and living my life in that way. It's been an evolution, but intersecting with that is giving and sitting with the autonomy in my kids personally and in my clients or patients professionally, that ultimately their autonomy is primary to our work, and that they will make choices. And, sometimes we'll concur on choices, sometimes we won't, but ultimately their autonomy, respecting that is so core to my work. So I think that theme is probably the one I've thought about the most, or kind of can overarch that story.
To clarify, because there's a lot of terminology that gets thrown around quite a bit, and so you're talking about autonomy. How would you describe autonomy, both in a general way and autonomy, what that really means for you?
So I would say autonomy, meaning that I'm a grown up and I get to make choices. Like, right? Because I think, so one of the specific things I think of is in relationships on and off, over the years, where people respect your autonomy and sometimes where people do not. And it can take, I've been in relationships where it took me a long time to realize that my autonomy was being not respected and not supported. And you can adapt to that and sort of be meeting someone else's expectations a lot and trying to please them. Again, plenty of sort of patterns that's a pattern that I personally have had to work to change, to disrupt. And so that's an example of, in for my personal life, in a personal relationship, where I really had to come to the idea that this was not, the way this person was treating me was disrespectful and did not allow for my choices, and that there was an expectation I would always be doing things in their way. And that took a long time to break away from. So I think that's a very specific example. I can also give you one other if you want
Sure.
me to.
Yes.
The other one is, I describe it as becoming radicalized, quite frankly, somewhere in the late 90s, early aughts, about body and weight and dieting. Like pretty much 99.9% of women in our society, I spent a lot of my life worrying about my size, my weight, dieting, trying to diet, being disgusted and ashamed with myself. All of it, things and it's not just women, of course, but it's such a common story. I spent years as a young kid training in ballet and dance, and of course that just fed into that as well. But it was, and this is going to sound a little ridiculous, but it was a magazine. That was one of, I had been moving in this direction anyway, because I had thoughts of writing books about, body freedom and all that. So I was working my way into it. But a magazine called Mode, that was really this very sexy, stylish magazine for women of all sizes, and great writing and great, blew me away. And it only was in print for maybe, I don't know, 3 years, but those 3, I lived for that. And it just allowed me to see all size bodies as sexy, appealing, worthy of love. It was a huge disruption and allowed me to have autonomy over my body and my choices, that I could grow into autonomy. Obviously, none of this is like on and off switch, but to grow into autonomy about how I perceived myself physically and what that meant about who I was, and helped me in trying to raise my children to try to counteract some of the, bigger huge societal pressures. So I think those are probably the two big themes I could come up with.
So those are huge things. And if we, if we pull in for the, for the bigger community and really highlight this,
Yeah.
that there is a very wise person who helped me with the terminology of traditional gendered expectations. Uh,
Hi.
you.
But was that me, perhaps?
That was you. Yeah, it was you. And what's so bizarre is that we're supposed to be nothing.
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely.
there's really
100%.
a size zero, but when I thought that it was just size zero, then there's also size 00. So you can
You
be two times
can,
nothing.
you can be double absent, double not present, double taking up no space at all. No
Exactly.
space.
Exactly.
That's
And
where women are supposed to be, absent.
well, in more, in really looking at more of the traditional, which is what, which is where autonomy comes in, is that, it seems that one of the things that you're saying is that autonomy is about choosing for yourself, and sometimes going
Absolutely.
through what is counterintuitive.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
maybe we
Absolutely.
talk about that somewhere also, that we're taught to believe that if it's intuitive, then that's a good thing. That's
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's where we need to go. However,
Right.
what you and I both know is that intuitive is something that can get
Yeah.
practiced. And so it can, and so it doesn't mean necessarily
Yeah.
that intuitive
Yes.
is our, perhaps a better way of putting this is that intuitive doesn't necessarily mean our own voice.
Exactly. I think that's a beautiful way to put it. I think that's a perfect way to put it. And it's a real, I see that as a real sort of yes and or dialectic on intuition and intuitive, because absolutely intuition does not always mean our voice, because intuition, right, turns out to be a combination of all the things that have come into our body and brain over the years, our learning, our experiences, our what's come into us, our underlying genetics and makeup. So it's not excluded from input from the world and society that may have nothing to do with our voice. And yes, and finding our voice has something to do with allowing ourselves to trust intuition. But it, it's a real that's a real process of self-discovery and trying to sort out what works for us for finding our voice. I think it's so important.
It, it, it is, and it's important at every single
Yes.
level.
Yes. 100%.
And from the beginning,
Yeah.
from the beginning, our
Yeah.
earliest
Yeah.
experiences are about how we're held, what the nonverbal is, where and that this
Yeah.
gets deposited in our bodies.
That's right. Deposited right into our nervous systems and our the attachment to the nervous system to the body and how our bodies respond to things, how our brains respond to things, and there's all kinds of automatic or routine responses that occur, and of course, more I don't want to say extreme because it's not always extreme, but in levels of that can include trauma, of course, which wire in things at levels that become about survival. Very common story I work with in with some a number of my patients is the sort of growing up in a high conflict or even emotionally abusive household, and they become the peacemaker, the pleaser, the got and that is their survival mechanism. As a child, it just that's how it some combination of what they live with, their own makeup, but into adulthood it becomes no longer useful and in fact maladaptive. And so trying to undo that intuitive response of I have to please everybody, I can't you know um, leave something not done at work because my kid got sick, but I can't not be there for my kid, I can't ask my husband for help because like it can just be an endless amount of pleasing, 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 and guilt if you're not doing everything, which and an adult with life becomes absolutely unmanageable and untenable and overwhelming. So that's just a more kind of specific version of what we're talking about, those early responses being wired in.
Yeah. And as women, what becomes intuitive can become intuitive. It doesn't have to, is this pleaser. And I call it the 4 F's for women. I have a corollary for men, but this is where we are right now. So,
right at this moment,
yeah,
we'll go here.
this is where we are. So we're the finders, the feelers, the fixers, and the freelancers.
Gosh, yes.
Right. Right.
That's
Meaning
perfect.
that,
It captures it beautifully.
and that no matter what's left, it's
We do.
fine.
It's us.
It's
us.
us.
100%.
It's us.
Yep.
And you have a lot of us's. You
Yeah.
have as and I know that my kids ask me this also. I don't know, who are grown as are yours.
Yep.
Like, how'd you do this? Like, how does this work?
Yeah. How did you balance it as they come into sort of the ages around when, I had them and that kind of thing? You don't, I think, I don't have good answers for that, because at some level you just do. It becomes survival mode. Depends a lot on what kind of resources you have and supports you have. I think, that's part of the answer to that. But that automatic need for you to be the one doing it all, that pressure, that feeling that is, you are the final on the 4 F's there. That is always your job. It's exhausting. And it's no wonder that so many, and again, we're focusing on women, and, women feel so burnt out because supports are not there. Communal systemic supports for families with young children, not prioritized at all. And so it's this scramble for families. Traditional gendered roles in couples can also make for challenges in helping a partner develop skills that are more, equal and supportive, because they may be perfectly amazing people. However, their traditional gendered expectations don't include helping you in the ways you maybe need help. So, yeah, those questions are tough, because I'm like, I don't know. It was a blur. Don't ask. Find some pictures, because that's all I got. I don't know.
Right. And, and I think that some of us know when we hear, well, it takes a village. It absolutely does. And then when you wake up in the morning, you're just like, gee, I hope my village has come today.
Exactly.
Village, hello.
Hello, I need my village. And you build the village, and then your primary, person gets sick. There's one sort of key person, like your child care, they get sick, and everything else, the domino effect is just, so where is that village? Better hope everybody's healthy and well today, so that I can be there for me, and to do my support roles and help take care of who I need to help take care of. So,
well, here we are today on social media, right? And this is a wonderful thing that we're able to do this. We're able to reach a lot of people, and at the same time as people who provide treatment and help comes in all kinds of forms.
That's correct.
What are you noticing
in terms of what people are needing?
In terms of help? We can start, because there's so much happening right now in terms of, I see parents who were really challenged with my kid. I really don't want them to be on social media. I don't want them to have this phone. I don't want them to whatever. And at the same time, if they're not part of what's happening socially.
Absolutely.
And they're left out. These are really tough questions.
They're huge. And I think, we are sort of, well, certainly our generation didn't grow up with it, but it's been a part of our adult lives, very much so, right? So we've had to become fluent in it. But I believe sort of the longer term solutions are going to have to come from the generations that are, digital natives that have grown up with it. But I think we have to try to set the stage. And families do. It is one of the chief struggles, all varieties of it. Having the phone, social media, gaming, all kinds of varieties of screens and access. And just talking to a family this week about that, and movements such as wait till eighth, to get a smartphone, or it's okay to delay, because one of the biggest
Hang on one
challenge.
second. I just want to interject. Wait till 8 doesn't mean until they're 8 years old.
Oh, wait
It
till
means
eighth.
till eighth grade.
Eighth grade. Right. Wait till eighth. Not wait till eighth. But the reason that those movements are coming up is because in our generation, and the generation just past us with kids, we've become very used to now being able to reach our kids and contact our kids, and so there's pushback on kids not having phones, on kids not being reachable during the day. The most recent episode, I'll plug for 1 second, Now Health Goes to School, the podcast, but it's just my co-host and I talking about this very, very hot topic of cell phones in school. And some of the studies are really quite interesting in that kids are usually, many of them are quite relieved to have a locked pocket or a box to put their phone in during the day. They would prefer not to. And just clearly, they are huge distractions. But again, districts that have tried to push back on it get a lot of, oh no, I have to be able to reach my kid. So, and I get it. I'm not judging that. I'm just saying these are problems that we will need to solve. But look, cell phones are here, screens are here. I mean, you can't put the genie back in the bottle, despite what some other, I think there's sort of a group of people out there who suggest that's what we can find. But I think wise usage, but on the ground, as you were asking, families day to day trying to decide, make decisions, set limits on time. It's, kids who struggle with emotional dysregulation, harder to set limits on, more likely to sort of get hypnotized and connected to. I mean, we're going to have, those are problems to be solved, and they will be around, and there's benefits, lots of benefits, but we have to look at the very, very powerful vulnerabilities that it creates if we're not thinking really proactively about it, I think.
So besides social media, because we've been around this block. You work with kids and teenagers. I've worked with kids starting as young as 3, who have lovely. I want to be really clear, and I'm gonna jump in to speak for both of us for a moment, which is that when there are kids who are having difficulties and they're being challenged with something that they don't know how to address, and the parents don't know how to help their child, these children are not children who are unloved, neglected, not thought about adequately, that they're not a priority. That's really, really terrible
Absolutely.
misperceptions.
I'm so glad.
Would you say?
I'm so glad you raised that. It's so important to understand that this is not about parents who don't love their kids, or, we cannot be in the business of parent bashing. These are complicated situations with parents who love their children and are just trying to find solutions. And so huge, so important that you brought that up, because that is a big misperception, and we need to be clear about that. So.
Yeah, and I have parents, and I'm sure you have also, they've had 3 kids and they have a 4th kid, or they have 2 kids, they have a 3rd kid, 1 kid, whatever it is, and they just go, I don't get it.
Right. What happened?
Everything's going on with this child, whatever we've done and we try, and these are thoughtful, caring, loving people.
Absolutely.
That it's right there. And
100%.
how do you navigate this when you've done everything that you can think of? And what they thought of is really good things.
Yes, all the standard parenting, strategies, and then some. I mean, they're researching, they're talking to other families, they're in support groups. I mean, they're not coming with easy things and needing sort of basic supports. These are complex kids and families really trying to do the right thing, and that's a lot of our work.
Yeah, and great kids.
Yeah, amazing. Amazing.
great kids who have, who have such, interesting human beings in different kinds of ways, and they're confused as well. If you think
Absolutely.
they're so they're so confused
For sure.
because they don't
For sure.
know.
They're
No.
exactly. And they don't want to be in trouble all the time. They want to do better. They really do. And they're hurting and in pain when it's not working. And same thing keeps happening over and over again. And these are amazing kids with passions and interests and often fabulous senses of humor. I mean, it's just, we have to see the child, not just the behaviors.
We have to see the child, not just the behaviors. And by the way, if we follow that trajectory
Yeah,
into our adult lives and into our adult
that's
relationships,
right. That's
we
right.
also need to see the humans that are in our lives and not
Absolutely.
just their behaviors.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And so, yeah, so sometimes do you find that sometimes you're sitting with someone who's well into adulthood, and you can almost get like little pictures of this person as a 3-year-old, as a 5-year
Oh,
old, as a 12-year-old.
absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Start to put, and always checking in to make sure I'm not making assumptions. But as we put the pieces together, and the narrative spins out, absolutely. And I think training in child work is something that, gives us that sort of tendency to see the adults and be trying to understand that narrative, and their pictures in childhood and what it looked like and their struggles. Um, absolutely.
I think
Absolutely.
sometimes the training is backwards, that there's adult training, and then if you elect, there's child training.
I have no idea. They're used to, there's a guy, he was the director, Bill Bibsley. Anyway, he used to say, no, I don't remember who it was, but he used to say the only fully trained psychiatrists are child psychiatrists, which was not nice to adult psychiatrists. So I don't want to come on down, but as child
No,
psychiatrists,
no shame, no
no,
judgment.
no judgment, but it was a complete joke. But in terms of just exactly what you're saying, sort of big picture, it does seem like, broadly speaking, we really, need to start with childhood and move forward. But that's not how it's set up. So
That's a different conversation. We won't take that on at the moment. I knew this would happen, and of course it has. Candida, is there something that, as we need to start wrapping up, very sadly,
goes fast.
we have to find other ways of talking this on Instagram Live. By the way, everyone, I want you to know that this is her first Instagram Live, and talking about change and stepping forward and taking on a challenge and disrupting. You can now add this to your lengthy bio that you've broken the Instagram Live barrier. So, Candida, is there something that, as we're closing up here, that you would like to let our communities know?
I think the other word that comes to mind, probably for me in my day-to-day work, and it becomes more and more important over time, is compassion. And whether that's compassion for self or compassion for the people we work with, or broadly compassion, um, out in the world, people in our lives, that finding space for that, tuning into that is a huge part of my work. And I'll just shout out to my mother, who was the sort of original, for me, compassionate sort of person, and even before I had language for that. And so it's just, again, something that grows for me and becomes increasingly an important part of my work.
Okay. I literally, because I'm writing my book, and I was just writing about compassion and self-compassion this morning. And with you here, and in our conversation, as you were saying compassion, what I realized that is in the word compassion is the word pass.
Yeah.
And that compassion isn't about giving people passes.
No.
It's not a pass. It's not saying, well, if you have compassion, that therefore it doesn't matter what you've done. It doesn't matter what you've said. That it's not being saying that everything is great.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. It is, I think, coming back to the sense of seeing the person, the compassion for the humanity of any human that you're working with. That does not mean that that it's okay if their actions have harmed someone, or, if their actions are really causing problems in their life or other people's lives. It's not saying those aren't things to change. There's another yes and dialectic. Both are true, but finding compassion for the human, and their humanity and deserving of autonomy and respect, all those things. I think that's huge. It's a big challenge, but you're absolutely right. Compassion is not about, okay, everything's fine, do whatever you want. It is not, and that is a common thought error out there.
So I can't thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
It's a blink. It's
so
blink.
Fast.
And so I'm here to remember also that we're supposed to take our cover shot. So
okay.
Little fluff
on the pictures. Fluff.
Go.
Okay.
As you wish. Okay, ready?
Ready.
And one more. Women love to have options. This gives us an option
Absolutely.
here. And I want to say thank you to everyone who's joined us today. This has been invaluable. Remember that it's going to be posted on my Instagram thing, and it will be posted with Dr. Fink as well.
Yep.
And that positive change can happen at any point in time. Can't wait to see you again. Tell your friends, come join me next week, and I've saved a seat for you. See you then.
Bye.
Bye.